The screech of tires, metal twisting, then nothing. Just a cold, echoing void where moments before there had been the frantic pulse of rush hour, the blare of horns, my own shallow breaths battling the evening air. I remember the headlights blinding me for a split second, a cruel, predatory flash. Then black. They said it was a miracle I lived. A drunk driver, wrong way, wrong time. But miracle felt wrong. Miracles were gentle, weren't they? This felt like being ripped apart and sewn back together with sharper needles, leaving me different. Not just bruised ribs and a concussion. Something had shifted, something inside. When I opened my eyes in the sterile white of the hospital room, the world looked clearer. Sounds were sharper. Smells. The antiseptic tang. The faint, sweet scent of flowers in a vase across the room. Overwhelming. It wasn't just my senses, it was perception, like a veil had lifted. My old life, the one of endless spreadsheets and lukewarm coffee, felt distant, muted, like a faded photograph. Ava, the cog in the machine, the one who blended into the beige walls of Sterling Corp, the one whose ideas were as invisible as she was gone. This new Ava, she felt edged with steel. Fearless, they said. No, not fearless. Beyond fear. Fear belonged to the old life, the one where I had something to lose. Now I was running on something colder, something far more potent. Justice. And maybe a touch of something darker. Let's call it anticipation. Back in the beige walls, the air hung thick with ambition and the scent of cheap office air freshener. Miranda, just the name scraped against my newly sharpened senses. Miranda Hayes. My boss. My shadow. My thief. The meeting room hummed with forced enthusiasm. The quarterly review, the stage for corporate theater. Miranda, center stage, of course. Her voice, polished and sharp as glass, sliced through the room. And this quarter, we've seen truly groundbreaking innovation. My innovation. Every slide on the presentation, every meticulously crafted point, every strategy designed in the late hours fueled by instant coffee and desperation, mine. Presented now, flawlessly, by Miranda as if born from her own brilliant mind. The usual nausea twisted in my stomach. But not this time. This time, it was different. Cold. Controlled. I watched her, this woman who had built her career on the backs of others, who had smiled to my face while pilfering my very thoughts. I watched her with a new kind of clarity. A clarity that saw not just the greed, but the fear beneath it. She was desperate to shine. Desperate to be seen. Pathetic. I didn't flinch when she took credit for the Hayes Initiative, the campaign I had bled over for weeks. I didn't interrupt when she basked in the approving nods of the senior partners. No. The old Ava might have stammered, might have tried to speak, might have been ignored anyway, but not this Ava. This Ava simply listened, observed, documented. My phone, discreetly placed on the table, recorded every word, every lie, every stolen breath of my intellectual property. Evidence. I was collecting evidence now, like gathering stones for a foundation. A foundation for what was to come. The fluorescent lights hummed as the office emptied. Another day, another theft. But the air felt different tonight, charged, heavy with unspoken things. Outside, the city lights blinked on, indifferent to the corporate dramas playing out within these glass walls. I lingered long after everyone else had fled. My fingers danced across the keyboard, not on spreadsheets now, but on emails. To people I hadn't spoken to in months. Years, for some. People Miranda had. Sidelined, forgotten, people who remembered, people who had seen. Subject, a question about Miranda's innovation. Simple, direct, like a seed planted in fertile ground. No grand plan yet. Not overtly. Subtlety was the key. I wouldn't confront her, not yet. Confrontation was messy, predictable. My revenge would be elegant, a slow, deliberate unraveling. Like pulling a thread on a cheap garment, watching the whole thing fall apart stitch by stitch. I looked out at the darkening city, the silence of the office pressing in around me. Miranda believed she was untouchable. Tomorrow she would arrive, smug and confident, ready to reap the rewards of my labor. She had no idea what was coming. And that was the delicious part. She would be jobless by morning. I knew it. Not with anger, not with triumph, just certainty. A quiet, cold certainty that settled deep in my bones. Justice was coming, and it wouldn't be gentle. The scent of expensive coffee clung to the air in the boardroom. Polished mahogany, immaculate views of the city. The usual stage setting for power plays. But today, the air crackled with something more than usual corporate tension. Anticipation. And beneath it, a tremor of fear, not mine. Miranda, radiating smug confidence, stood at the head of the long table. Her smile, sharp and practiced, didn't quite reach her eyes. There was a tremor there, a flicker of something. Anxiety? Perhaps even she, in her arrogance, sensed a shift in the current. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice ringing with false cheer. "As you know, this quarterly review has been exceptional, thanks in no small part to the groundbreaking Hayes Initiative." She launched into her presentation, a polished performance of stolen brilliance. The board members, faces in passive masks, listened, nodded, accepted, as always, but not everyone. I saw them. Across the table, a few faces flickered with something beyond the usual corporate politeness. A raised eyebrow, a barely perceptible frown. Seeds planted the night before beginning to sprout. Miranda gestured to the screen, highlighting the projected success. My success is hers. "This initiative," she declared, voice dripping with self-importance, "positions us perfectly for—" She didn't finish the sentence. A voice, calm and clear, cut through the air. "Mine." "Actually, Miranda," I said, my tone even, conversational, as if correcting a minor factual error. "That initiative, it's not yours." Silence. The kind of silence that descends when a pin drops in a crowded room. Miranda's smile froze. Her eyes, for the first time, lost their practiced sheen. They narrowed, sharpened, threatened. "Ava," she said, her voice suddenly brittle. "I'm not sure what you think you're doing." "Just correcting the record," I replied, still calm. Leaning forward slightly, I met the gaze of Mr. Henderson, the CEO, a man known for his icy pragmatism. "Perhaps you should look at slide 37, Mr. Henderson, the original concept documents. Date stamped, time stamped. Author, Ava Sterling." A murmur rippled through the room. Mr. Henderson's brows furrowed. He signaled to his assistant. The presentation flickered back to slide 37. There it was, my name. Undeniable, immutable, proof. Disbelief warred with dawning comprehension on the faces around the table. Heads turned. Whispers erupted, hushed, urgent. The carefully constructed facade of corporate politeness began to crumble. Miranda's voice strained, attempted to salvage the situation. "This is a misunderstanding. Ava was instrumental in developing the initiative, of course, but the vision, the overall strategy—" "Developed entirely by me, Miranda," I interjected, my voice still even, but now edged with steel. "Every element, from inception to execution, and I have the documentation to prove it." From my bag, I produced a slim folder. Evidence compiled meticulously over weeks, months, years even, now sharpened and amplified by my rebirth. Emails, drafts, meeting notes, testimonies from others, colleagues, I continued, my gaze sweeping across the room, catching the eyes of faces I recognized. Faces that had been dimmed, sidelined, silenced by Miranda's ambition. Colleagues who have also experienced Miranda's unique leadership style. A woman across the table, Sarah, from marketing, nodded almost imperceptibly. Then, bolder, met my gaze directly. A spark of defiance ignited in her eyes. Another, David from finance, cleared his throat, his posture shifting from subservient to something else. Solidarity? Hope? The room was no longer a stage for Miranda's performance. It had become a courtroom, and the evidence, it was damning. I laid it out piece by piece, calmly, methodically. The dates, the times, the coincidence of Miranda's inspiration always mirroring my own documented work. Miranda's face, once radiating confidence, now paled, then flushed, then settled into a mask of furious disbelief. She sputtered denials, accusations. Sabotage, she hissed. Jealousy. Fabrication. But her voice lacked conviction. The proof was too stark, the shift in the room too palpable. No one was looking at her anymore. They were looking at me, and at the evidence. Mr. Henderson, his face grim, finally spoke. Miranda, he said, his voice cold and devoid of any pretense of warmth. Perhaps you could step outside for a moment. Miss Sterling and I need to discuss these findings. Miranda, stripped of her composure, of her carefully constructed persona, was escorted not unkindly but firmly from the room. The door clicked shut behind her, the sound echoing like a final punctuation mark on her career at Sterling Corp. The silence that followed was different now, not tense, but expectant. The air, no longer heavy with deceit, felt lighter. Possibilities hummed in the space where fear had been. Mr. Henderson turned to me, his expression unreadable. Ms. Sterling, he said, his voice still formal, but now laced with a new note. Respect? Curiosity? Something shifted in his eyes, too. Explain. And I did. I explained not just the stolen initiatives, the documented proof, but the culture of fear, the stifled innovation, the wasted potential under Miranda's reign. I spoke of integrity, of transparency, of recognizing true talent, not just those who stole it. When I finished, the silence returned. But this time, it was a silence of consideration, of dawning realization. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Sarah spoke first, her voice clear, confident. It's time for a change, Mr. Henderson. Others echoed her sentiment. David. Then others. Voices that had been quiet for too long, finding their strength in the sudden shift in the power dynamic. A new order was forming, born not of ambition and greed, but of justice and something more, something that felt almost like hope. Mr. Henderson, after a long, considering pause, finally nodded. Very well, he said, his gaze settling on me, a flicker of something almost impressed in his eyes. Miss Sterling, it seems your insights extend beyond mere initiative development. He paused again, then a hint of a smile, almost imperceptible, touched his lips. Perhaps you'd be interested in a leadership role, effective immediately. The offer hung in the air, a new beginning, a new path, and behind me, somewhere outside those mahogany doors, I knew. Miranda Hayes was, even now, packing her desk. Jobless by morning, just as I had known. Justice delivered. And this time, it felt right. The days that followed Miranda's exit were strange. Like the air after a storm, washed clean, but with the lingering scent of ozone, a faint electric hum. Sterling Corp felt different, lighter, more breathable. The beige walls, once oppressive, seemed almost neutral now, not prisons, just walls. The fear, the ever-present low-level corporate anxiety that had permeated everything had dissipated, replaced by curiosity, hope, and a cautious, almost tentative respect. For me, Ava Sterling, the forgotten one. Now suddenly visible. Center stage whether I wanted to be or not. My promotion was swift. Head of Innovation and Strategic Integrity, the title read. Corporate jargon, of course, but the weight of it, the implication, undeniable. They wanted change, desperately, and they were looking to me to deliver it. The old guard, the Miranda loyalists, scattered. Some resigned, muttering about unstable leadership and corporate mutiny. Good riddance. Let them cling to their outdated power structures, their kingdoms built on stolen ideas and fear. They had no place in the new order. Others, they shifted. Quickly. Faces previously frozen in polite subservience turned to me, eyes bright with a new kind of hunger. not for power, not for stolen credit, but for opportunity. To finally be seen, to finally contribute honestly, openly, to create. Sarah and David, my quiet allies from the boardroom, were first. Sarah, with her marketing brilliance, long stifled under Miranda's micromanagement, now blossomed, ideas pouring out of her like a torrent unleashed. David, with his financial acumen, quietly competent, now stepped forward, his voice gaining strength, authority. A team was forming, organically, authentically, built not on hierarchy but on shared purpose, shared liberation. A name surfaced from the faded corners of my past. Eleanor Vance, industry legend, renowned for her unorthodox methods, feared and respected in equal measure. Years ago, early in my career, she had seen something in me, a spark quickly snuffed out by the sterling Corp grind. We had lost touch. Until now. A cryptic email arrived, invitation to a meeting, location. The Obsidian Room, Vance Tower, tomorrow, noon. No explanation, no pleasantries, just demand, intriguing. Vance Tower loomed, glass and steel, a monument to her singular ambition. The Obsidian Room lived up to its name, dark, minimalist, all angles and shadows. Eleanor Vance herself was even more imposing than I remembered. Sharp eyes, silver hair pulled back tight, presence that filled the space, suffocating and exhilarating at once. "Sterling," she said, her voice gravelly, direct, no preamble. "Heard about Miranda Hayes?" It wasn't a question, just acknowledgement. "Yes," I replied, equally direct. "She's gone." A flicker of something, almost approval, crossed her face. "Good riddance. Waste of talent, that one. Yours specifically." Again, not a compliment. Just cold, hard assessment. She leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "You have a second chance, Sterling. Don't squander it on petty revenge. Revenge is a shadow. Build something real, something unstoppable." Her mentorship was brutal. No gentle encouragement, no hand-holding. Just relentless questioning, pushing, demanding. She taught me about leverage, about vision, about ruthlessness, yes, but a ruthlessness tempered by integrity. "Power without purpose is just noise," she'd growl, pacing the Obsidian Room like a caged predator. "Build with purpose, Sterling. Build to last." Her guidance was like sharpening stone against steel. Painful, abrasive, but leaving me stronger, focused, ready. The change at Sterling Corp wasn't overnight, no sudden revolution, but a slow, steady shift. Like tectonic plates grinding, rearranging the very landscape of the corporate culture. Transparency became the new mantra. Innovation, not imitation, was the new currency. Integrity, not backstabbing, the new expectation. My spiritual insight, as Vance bluntly called it, the clarity, the sharpened perception born from near-death, became a tool, not mystical, not magical, practical, strategic. I saw patterns others missed, motivations hidden beneath corporate jargon, weaknesses in the armor of competitors, opportunities others overlooked. It wasn't magic, it was seeing, truly seeing. The company started to breathe. Creativity, long suppressed, began to flow. Ideas, once stolen and hoarded, now shared, debated, refined. Collaboration replaced competition. Trust, slowly, cautiously, began to bloom in the sterile office air. Sterling Corp, once defined by its cutthroat ambition, began to redefine itself. Not just as a corporation, but as something different, something human. Flawed, yes, but striving for something better, something real. A legacy built not on greed, but on genuine innovation, on shared success, on honesty. And I was leading it. Not with a fist, not with fear, but with vision. A vision born from the ashes of my old life. A vision forged in the cold fire of rebirth. A vision that was slowly, powerfully, transforming everything. Months passed. Sterling Corp thrived. The Sterling model, integrity-driven innovation, became industry buzz, awards, accolades. Success, tangible and undeniable. The whispers of doubt from the old guard faded, replaced by the rising tide of acclaim. Yet a hollowness lingered, a quiet unease in the midst of triumph. Miranda was gone, yes. Her shadow lifted, but the darkness she represented, it hadn't vanished. It had just receded, gone underground. I knew with that newfound clarity that the story wasn't truly finished. Not until something more. A final thread to be tied. A final confrontation. Not for revenge, but for closure. For myself. Then the invitation arrived. A charity gala. Celebrating corporate philanthropy. Irony thick and cloying. The host? Ryan Carter. Her Ryan Carter. Olivia's fiancé. The golden ticket. The reason for my disposal. A wave of something cold washed over me. Not anger, not fear, something detached, clinical, an opportunity, a stage for the final act. The ballroom glittered, chandeliers casting artificial constellations across the forced smiles and brittle laughter of the corporate elite. Ryan Carter, polished, charming, a ghost of his former golden self, circulated, shaking hands, projecting an illusion of power he no longer possessed. Olivia, clinging to his arm, shimmering in designer fabrics, her smile even more brittle, more forced than the others. Desperate to maintain the facade, desperate to be seen, desperate, pathetic. My parents were there too. At the edge of the crowd, faces etched with a strange mixture of resentment and something else. Curiosity? Apprehension? They watched me from across the room, eyes hungry, calculating, like vultures circling a potential meal. Miranda wasn't present, not publicly at least. But her shadow, it hung in the air. The legacy of her deceit, the culture of fear she had fostered still lingered, faint but present, like a ghost at the feast. Then she appeared. Not physically, but on stage. Ryan Carter stepping to the microphone, his voice amplified, echoing through the ballroom. And now we are honored to present the Corporate Integrity Award. The award. Irony again, sharp and cutting. The screen behind him flickered to life, a montage of corporate success stories. And then Miranda's face, projected, magnified, smiling that same brittle practice smile. This year's recipient, Ryan announced, voice ringing with forced enthusiasm, is Miranda Hayes. Silence. Then polite, confused applause rippled through the room. Confused because everyone knew. Everyone in the industry knew the whispers, the rumors, the truth of Miranda's success. Everyone except Ryan Carter, it seemed. Still trapped in his gilded bubble of denial. On the screen, Miranda accepting the award, her voice saccharine, thanking Sterling Corp for the opportunity, for the support, for the visionary leadership. My vision, my leadership, stolen, even in absentia. The theft complete, utter, and publicly celebrated. I stepped forward slowly, deliberately. The music faded, the polite applause faltered, heads turned, eyes fixed on me. Ava Sterling, the Ava Sterling. Ryan, oblivious, continued his practiced patter. Miranda, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight, but we are honored to accept this award on her behalf. Actually, I said, my voice clear, cutting through the forced cheer, echoing in the sudden silence. Miranda isn't here because she's no longer with Sterling Corp. Ryan blinked, confusion clouding his polished facade. Ava, what? Miranda Hayes, I stated, my voice ringing with quiet authority, was terminated for corporate malfeasance, for theft of intellectual property, for misleading the very corporation she purported to serve. The ballroom went utterly silent, utterly still. The frozen smiles, the brittle laughter vanished, replaced by shock, a collective intake of breath. I continued, my voice even, measured, each word a carefully placed stone in the edifice of truth. The groundbreaking innovations you're celebrating tonight, Ryan, they weren't Miranda's. They were mine. I gestured to the screen, Miranda's smiling face, now a grotesque parody of success. Every idea she presented, Every strategy she claimed, stolen from me, from others. The evidence, it's all documented and publicly available. I nodded towards tables at the back of the ballroom, where Sarah and David and others stood holding folders. Evidence. Truth laid bare for all to see. Ryan's face paled. Olivia gasped, a strangled sound. My parents, they recoiled as if struck. The spotlight was no longer on Miranda's fabricated success. It was on the truth, on the theft, on the betrayal, on me, Ava Sterling, standing in the light, finally, undeniably. I turned without another word, without another glance at Ryan, at Olivia, at my parents. Walked away, into the crowd, into the quiet hum of shocked whispers, into my own future, leaving the shadow of Miranda and the hollow celebration of her stolen success behind. For good. The aftermath was seismic. The charity gala, intended to be a celebration, became an exposé. The carefully constructed facade of corporate glamour shattered, revealing the rot beneath. Ryan Carter's reputation, already fragile, crumbled. His company, once propped up by illusion and stolen success, began to unravel. Karma, swift and brutal, delivered its verdict. Miranda Hayes, publicly disgraced, vanished into the shadows she had always inhabited. Her name became a cautionary tale whispered in corporate corridors, the ghost of ambition without integrity. And Sterling Corp, it thrived, not just financially, but spiritually. The cleansing fire of truth had burned away the old, corrupt structures, leaving fertile ground for something new to grow. Transparency became policy. Integrity, not just a buzzword, but a guiding principle. Innovation, genuinely nurtured, flourished. The Sterling model, the corporate revenge story turned corporate redemption arc, became a case study in business schools, a testament to the power of authenticity, of honesty, of second chances. Beyond the boardroom battles, beyond the corporate triumphs, a different kind of transformation was taking place. Within me, Ava, the reborn. The cold, detached edge softened, not into sentimentality, not into forgiveness for the unforgivable, but into acceptance of the past, of myself, of the strength forged in the crucible of betrayal and rebirth. I reached out, tentatively, to people I had lost touch with, friends dimmed by the shadow of my corporate invisibility, family, estranged, distant, casualties of my single-minded focus on surviving. They responded, hesitantly at first, then with a warmth, a generosity that surprised me, that healed me. Slowly, gradually, the hollowness inside began to fill, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with connection, with belonging, with love. Not the conditional, transactional love of my past, but something real, something earned, something given freely. A year later, Sterling Corp, thriving, vibrant, hosted its annual leadership summit. Not in a sterile boardroom, but in a light-filled atrium, plants cascading from above, natural light streaming in. Open, transparent, real. I stood on a small stage, not elevated, not distant, but level with the audience, with my team. Sarah, David, others, the faces of the new Sterling Corp, diverse, passionate, authentic. We've talked a lot about transformation, I said, my voice no longer cold, no longer detached, but warm, grounded, infused with hope. Corporate transformation, cultural transformation, personal transformation. I paused, my gaze sweeping over the faces before me. Faces that reflected not just ambition, but purpose. But transformation isn't just about changing things. It's about leaving things behind. Behind me on a screen, a single image. Vance Tower, looms, imposing, powerful. A monument to a different kind of ambition, a different era. We're not building Vance Tower, I said, a faint smile touching my lips. We're building something else, something human, something better. The image shifted to a sunrise, breaking over a cityscape bathed in golden light, a new dawn, a new beginning, a new legacy. We're building, I concluded, my voice ringing with quiet conviction. A future. Built not on shadows, but on light. Built not on theft, but on integrity. Built not on revenge, but on hope. The applause that followed was not polite, not forced, but genuine, heartfelt. A wave of sound that washed over me, not cold, not clinical, but warm. And for the first time, standing there in the light, surrounded by my team, my new family, my new life, I realized I was reborn and finally free.